And welcome to another week of Upon Further Review. It's our midweek show. We'll be joined by Frank Sulkowski in just a few moments. Among the topics of discussion, we'll talk a little bit about the Statesboro Blue Devils and the Southeast Bullock Yellow Jackets. The Blue Devils wrap up this season on the road at Wayne County, and a big matchup at Fred Shaver Field for Steve Pennington and the Yellow Jackets as they get set to take on the Windsor Forest Knights and Greg Busby. The winner of that will have a home playoff game. The loser will be the number 3 seed in the upcoming state playoffs. As for the Statesboro Blue Devils, they'll be wrapping up the season on the road at Wayne County. And as for the Georgia Southern Eagles, coming in 0-7 on the season, they return to Paulson Stadium after their loss to Troy. They'll be back home. This time they'll be hosting Georgia State, the big rivalry game. Georgia State comes in 4-3 on the season, coming off a win this past Wednesday where they knocked off South Alabama in a nationally televised game on ESPN2. We'll get with Frank in just a moment. Before that, I'd like to remind you, for any legal advice you may have in the Statesboro Bullock County area, we have the man for you to talk to, Lovett Bennett Jr., attorney at law, PC, Lovett's office located in downtown Statesboro. Joining me now from WJCL Television in Savannah, it's the big guy, Frank Sulkowski. And Frank, got plenty to get to this week. Let's begin with your Georgia Southern Eagles, who come in 0-7 on the season. This past week, they went on the road at Troy. Cold and wet conditions didn't help things, and neither did the defense, giving up play after big play by the offense. You were there. You saw it as well as I did. It looked like a few signs of life, and then a couple of big plays that the defense has been giving up all year.
Well, it's one of those things, it's like you take one step forward, then you take 2 or 3 steps back, and that's what we saw over at Troy. And again, the defense giving up a lot of big plays. Troy pretty much able to do what they want at will, not enough stops. Offensively, what we saw out of Georgia Southern was they did move the ball, and they went in around 16 plays that they went into that more traditional flex look for Georgia Southern, and they ran the ball. They were able to eat up some clock. They picked up first downs. I think it was one of their better offensive performances of the season, but like you said, that's kind of thrown out the window when the defense can't get the stops and get that offense back on the field.
You do understand that you said that the offense has looked better than it's looked all year, and they did score how many points?
Yeah, again, 16 points. Yeah, exactly. But it's one of those things where I look at what we saw as far as a coherent, a cohesive unit out there. I did see some progress offensively, and again, it may not show in the stat wise, but I think they're moving that in the right direction. And again, the defense is what the story is to me. I mean, you're still giving up 38 points. You're not going to win too many games when you're giving up that type points, especially to a good team, a more upper echelon team in the Sun Belt like Troy is.
Well, I agree with you that the offense did look a little bit better, and it looked like they're moving in some form of a direction. I liked the fact that they rotated the quarterbacks in. I liked the fact that they went under center. It looks like they're trying to do some different things offensively to try and keep from being predictable, and I hope that that will pay off with dividends down the road, if not this week, when they take on Georgia State. Now, Georgia State comes in, they're doing pretty good on the season, 4-3. They won a nationally televised game this past week, a Sun Belt game against South Alabama. Haven't beaten world beaters, but 4 wins compared to 0 wins, and that's probably why they're a 4-point favorite coming into Paulson on Saturday.
Well, that, and then you also have Georgia State has knocked off Georgia Southern the past 2 times. Of course, that came after Georgia Southern's first year in the Sun Belt, and they hung 69 points on Georgia State up at the Georgia Dome. And ever since then, what have we seen out of Georgia State? Well, they defeated a Willie Fritz-led team, and then they beat a Tyson Summers team. So they're looking to knock off Georgia Southern for a 3rd straight year and defeat a 3rd straight different head coach for Georgia Southern. And again, the Georgia State defense very much improved, and I think a big part of that is their new head coach, and Coach Elliott, who was over at South Carolina as an interim head coach once himself. And you get a Georgia State team that knows they can beat Georgia Southern. They've done it the past 2 times. Then, like you said, they have wins. Georgia Southern doesn't. I really hope that the home crowd helps Georgia Southern, and this week they were able to get a few more things under their belts, and maybe that can thrive, because if you're going to win 1 or 2 games this season, you would really like one of them to be against one of your more hated rivals, and that's exactly, people can say it's not a rivalry all they want, but you better be right. Georgia State, Georgia Southern, it's a dang rivalry. It's a big one now, especially when Georgia Southern has dropped 2 straight to Georgia State.
And I would like Georgia Southern's chances. I think they're doing a little bit better offensively, and you got to imagine the defense at some point is able to stop the big plays, but you bring in Connor Manning and a Georgia State offense who's known to throw the ball deep. That seems to be the Eagles' Achilles heel. Do you think there's going to be some difference either in personnel, in scheme, or something defensively to keep from giving up these big plays week in and week out that kill your offense when they go down the field and make a big sustained drive?
Well, I mean, I would hope that we would see some differences when you look at the different, blitz packages that you're putting out there, and you're finding when you bring some of those in, you're giving up the big plays. Well, you would think at some point you're going to make those adjustments to not let that happen and try to put the pressure from somewhere else and don't risk the big play. And it's been the same MO. We've seen a lot of deep balls over the middle where receivers are left wide open, and that's been costly. Connor Manning will be one of those guys who will sling that ball out there, and Georgia State, they've seen the films, they've seen what's happened, and you better be dang straight. They're going to go out there and try to do the same things that they've seen Arkansas State, New Mexico State, and some of the others do against Georgia Southern. That's exactly what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to attack those same areas where Georgia Southern has been deficient in. Now it's just a matter of, have the Eagles had enough time, and have they done enough tweaks to limit those big plays, and that's what they got to do if they want to get a win, not just this week against Georgia State, but against any opponent from here on out.
Well, the weather definitely will not be a factor this Saturday. It looks like beautiful blue skies over Paulson Stadium, temperatures hovering right around upper 70s, low 80s. So hopefully they can get a good crowd out there, and that will also help them to maybe notch their first victory. Only a 4-point favorite for Georgia State, so the odds makers do see this as a pretty close game. All right, Frank, we'll be back with Frank in just a little bit, but when we come back from our break, we're going to hear from Georgia Southern interim head coach Chad Lunsford, as well as some of the players.
There's a lot to celebrate when you move ahead, but it takes planning. Finding the right one, making it a home, and a great mortgage specialist from Queensboro. Move ahead with your dream and bank ahead with Queensboro National Bank and Trust.
See Jeremy Reagan and the staff at Queensboro National Bank and Trust, South Main Street in Statesboro.
No credit refused isn't just an offer, it's a way of business and has been for over 100 years. No banks, no ridiculous credit requirements, just local Badcock store owners who treat you right and give you credit when others won't. It's never been easier to express your style and love your home.
It's always been a chip on my shoulder since my freshman year, and ready to come to play this year. Lead the D-line the best way as I can. To be prepared for this game.
Logan, it seems like a lot of times what's happened with this team is when the offense has made a big play or scored a touchdown, boom, the other team hits on a 1 or 2 play touchdown drive. I know you guys seemed in the second half to be a little bit better. How do you prevent that from happening?
Practice, just cut out on the big plays. That's what hurt us in the long run. It's just other opposing teams hit big plays, and we get put in a hole, and we'll come out the second half. But it's hard to fight back when you basically spotting points to the opposing team. So that's our biggest goal this week, is to cut out the big plays and cut out the mistakes. Players policing each other. The coaches can't have eyes on 100 guys, so it's going to be up to the players to police each other and coach them up as well with the coaches.
I think we'll both get a taste of both under center and in the gun. I think that it just happened to fall into place like that. How coach wanted to call the plays, and just it's our job just to execute whatever he gives us. But I don't think there's any specifics as to why he may have been in the gun more, or if I was under center.
Do you feel more comfortable in one or the other?
I think I do. I do well in both, but I have no preference really. Being my first year here, it's a new rivalry for me, but talking to the seniors and being close with them, I can tell how much it means to them. And so I think that just kind of flows through everyone else, and we want to definitely work our hardest to get those dubs for those guys and, send them off on a high note the best way we can.
I think you'll see, more under center package stuff. Obviously, you don't want to talk too much about what you're doing as far as, for the next opponent and all that, but we had some success, so it's definitely something we can build off of.
Chad, we had mainly Cato under center and Shy almost strictly in shotgun. Is that do they feel more comfortable doing that? Is that why you did that, or was there a reason for that?
No, I think both guys can do it. Cato has some experience, more experience at it, but we feel good about both guys. We feel like we can put both in the gun and both under center.
Do you plan on keeping rotating both of them?
We will play both. Shy is our starter, but we will get Cato involved.
Coach, 0-7, losing season is going to happen. Blow that away. You got two big games against two of your bigger rivals in Georgia State, Appalachian State coming up. This is a chance to really hone in and hang your hat on something. Big wins against these two teams would salvage something. Talk about that with this stretch of games coming up for you.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is, and we preached to our kids last week that this was a new season, and so we're looking at this as game 2. And, obviously everybody knows what this season is right now with being 0-7, but we're going to talk about it like it's game 2. And there's no reason why we can't get fired up and ready to roll against Georgia State. And then, obviously, the next week's game, but don't really want to talk about that yet. I mean, it's this week. And, the whole focus right now is to get our guys' swagger back, get us back to playing Georgia Southern football. And this is a great week to start against Georgia State. I think it really started. The thing that I really noticed before we played them the first time is there was always that rumbling, always that talk about when Georgia Southern would play Georgia State. And, so I think a lot of that stuff had already started to build. And then obviously the first time we played them, we got the best of them. And then the last 2 times they've gotten us. And the biggest thing that I think happens is a lot of these kids know each other. There are a lot of played together in high school or played against each other in high school. So there's a lot more invested in it. And again, I think it's a good thing. And I think it's something that our kids will be really excited about this week. And I think you'll see a fired up team.
Family Internal Medicine Associates of Statesboro, providing primary care for Statesboro area patients since 1998. Providing complete physicals, complete sports physicals, Medicare wellness exams, full diabetes treatment, and education from lifestyle changes to oral medications to insulin pump therapy. In-house dermatology, in-house circulation tests and ultrasounds, in-house lab. And introducing our new nurse practitioner, Melissa Beasley, as we now accommodate same-day or next-day appointments to serve your needs. Family Internal Medicine Associates of Statesboro, where we care.
Hey, Miss Thompson, everything's fine. It's going to be no problem. I'll have you done in a few minutes.
My name is Paisley Nordhaus, part owner of Complete Car Care, and I want you to come see me.
And being joined once again by Frank Sulkowski, the big guy from WJCL Television in Savannah. Frank, we got a big showdown coming up in Brooklet between Windsor Forest Knights and the Southeast Blue Yellow Jackets. Other games that we'll be covering this week. Statesboro High going on the road to wrap up their season at Wayne County. Portal playing on Thursday night of all things at Trutland. And of course the Bullock Academy Gators saw their season come to a close this past week at Deerfield Windsor. But let's begin with the Southeast Blue Yellow Jackets. And it's kind of an odd matchup here. You've got Greg Busby from Windsor Forest. His dad, of course, Buzz Busby, brought Steve Pennington in and Pennington was his right-hand man and then took over the program for Busby. And now he's meeting his son, and I've heard I haven't seen a lot, but I've heard that Windsor Forest runs some similar things to what Statesboro did back in the day with Buzz Busby, both on offense and defense.
They do indeed. I mean, it's very eerie how it looks very similar to what we used to see out of the Statesboro Blue Devils. And I will tell you this, what Coach Busby's been able to do, Windsor Forest, when I first got back to Savannah about 13 years ago, they were a perennial playoff team. They were one of those teams from Savannah that would be punched in and would get into the state playoffs every year to quickly be bounced. Now, that was when they were playing an up in classification, so they were usually knocked out quickly by a Lowndes or a Valdosta or a Colquitt County. Then they went into a kind of a lull there where they didn't win too many games. Coach Busby comes in, and he's really righted the ship there at Windsor Forest. And you're talking about this matchup, a lot on the line between Southeast Bullock and Windsor Forest. That number 2 spot in the region, a home playoff game on the line. And you're going to see two teams that, their MO is run the ball. And that's the same thing Windsor Forest likes to do. They have a lot of talented players there, a lot of speed as well. They have some young quarterbacks, but they have some veteran wide receivers and running backs that they like to run the ball. Very similar to how Southeast Bullock. You like to get on that Chase Walker, get on his back and let him do the damage. So this may be a really quick game in Brooklyn with the way the two teams really run the ball. Something else to watch out for, and it's kind of a very sad and somber. Windsor Forest just 2 weeks ago, one of their players, a young running back, he was shot and killed here in Savannah. So Windsor Forest has been dealing with a lot of stuff off the field as well here the past couple weeks. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to Windsor Forest, the Knights, and all that good stuff. But again, that's one thing to watch out for. Their attention hasn't been 100% on football, and rightfully so, with one of their teammates going down. But with that said, they know a second place finish in the region and a home playoff game would be huge for that program. So Windsor Forest, Southeast Bullock, definitely one of the more interesting and one of the biggest games in all of coastal Georgia this weekend for sure.
Well, this past, they do have two similar opponents. Of course, this past Friday, Windsor Forest was hammered pretty bad by Jenkins. Of course, Southeast played them early in the year. It was a little bit closer game. And then the other opponent was Beach, who Southeast Bullock just beat 30-13. Beach actually beat Windsor Forest. So on paper, it looks like, as you mentioned, it could be a close game. I think the Chase Walker factor may come in and eat some clock. They had an 8-minute and a 7-minute drive this past week that really helped them kind of put Beach away and keep their fairly potent offense from Beach on the sidelines. As for the Statesboro Blue Devils, Frank, they're playing for nothing but pride. It's unfortunate they lost this past week to South Effingham, who came in winless. A similar situation happened last year. South Effingham was winless. They knocked off Statesboro, went to the state with only one win. They did it again this year. Wayne County, however, last year still a little bit to play for. This time around, Wayne County's already locked up the region championship, so not really sure how many starters and how long they'll play. I know they don't want to lose to Statesboro, but there's not as much on the line as there typically is with these two teams.
No, but I can tell you one thing. Wayne County has a new head coach in Ken Cribb. He comes over from Bluffton. His name was actually in the mix for that Statesboro job as well. So I don't expect Wayne County and Ken Cribb to take the foot off the gas. They know you want to be peaking when you go into state playoffs. While Wayne County knows they'll have a home playoff game, they're into the state playoffs. What you don't want to do is kind of lose your vision and lose to a team that is not going to the playoffs. With that said, Statesboro, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. They go out there and this could set the tone for the offseason, for next year, and for the things Coach Kaiser is hoping to continue seeing an improvement. Yeah, like you said, South Effingham, a winless team, now going to the state playoffs with that one win. It just came at the right time. And when you're in a smaller region like that, sometimes that just takes one win, and that's what happened last week. And it is a shame because I think Statesboro has taken a lot of leaps this year. This is a matchup that just doesn't bode well for Statesboro High. Wayne County, very good offensively. In the middle part of the season, they had a quarterback that was injured, so their offense wasn't as productive. He is now healthy. I think Wayne County is going to want to continue to get going at full tilt and full speed as they get ready for the state playoffs. So I just think this is a tough one for Statesboro to pull out when Wayne County comes a call.
All right, well, Frank, you got the frenzy. You're going to be back on the set once again. I know last week when you got to go on the road, you went to Troy, you were not there, but back again. Any particular games, a big game of the week for you guys?
Well, actually, one of the things we're watching this week, in addition, I mean, that Southeast Bullock game is going to be huge between them and Windsor Forest. That's one of our featured games. But we're also looking to see if a couple teams can finish their regular seasons undefeated. Benedictine looking for another undefeated season there in AA, and also Jenkins. We talked about it there in that region in 3 AAA. The Jenkins Warriors looking to wrap up their first undefeated season in school history, and they have a chance to do that this Friday night as well. So we're looking to see how Jenkins and Benedictine finished off their season. We do have a couple, region implications. We do have those crossovers. That's another big one. Actually, we have Calvary Day going out to Twin City to take on ECI in that region championship game there in 3 single A. So that's another one we're keeping a close eye on this week as well.
All right. Well, Frank, we appreciate you joining us. And don't forget to tune in to The Frenzy about 10 after thereabouts on Friday nights. All right. Thanks for joining us. And coming up next, we'll hear from a couple of our area high school football coaches from Statesboro High and from Southeast Bullock.
We addressed the kids yesterday. The fact of the matter is it's another opportunity to compete. Whether you're playing your last football game that doesn't mean a whole lot, or whether you're shooting marbles in the yard, that's an opportunity to compete. And you teach kids a lot about competition, and don't take for granted the opportunity you have to go out and compete and win.
So you go up against Wayne County. It's on the road. That's a tough place. They're the number 1 team in the region. They've only got 1 loss. Your thoughts on the X's and O's part of this one?
A very good football team. They were without their starting quarterback for a few weeks. He came back last week healthy. They're fast. They throw the ball well. They're big up front. They run the ball well. But their most impressive thing about them thus far this year has been their defense. Very strong. They run a 4-3 scheme. Fast, and once again, their defense is very senior laden. Have 8 seniors starting on their defense, so a lot of experience. They got a good coaching staff over there, so they're a darn good football team. They're not 8-1 by accident. Those seniors deserve another shot at a victory. They worked extremely hard. We're still a little banged up, nothing major with the exception of 1 player. So it's just another work week, another game. The only difference is when the horn blows Friday and our season will be over.
Well, if you hear those saying like father, like son, yes, there are a lot of similarities. I think Greg Busby down at Windsor Forest for the last several years had been running the wishbone, and so he has ventured out, and it's more of a shotgun package now, but it is still a power. And so that Busby trend is still alive and well, and it has worked well for him this year. He's got a very fine quarterback, I think, that transferred in there, and he's made that offense click. But I've also seen a lot of similarities defensively. They are running basically the same defense that Coach Busby brought in here in 1999, and basically it's the same one that we're running here. So we'll be mirroring each other on the field come Friday night. And same thing with special teams. I see a lot of similarities there going way back. So it will be a unique situation to coach against Greg in this environment. And not only that, to coach in a situation where this game could determine the number 2 seed for our region, which would be a big bonus for either team to host a first-round state playoff game.
The Medical Center Pharmacy on Grenade Street is proud to be your Health Mart pharmacy in Statesboro. The Medical Center Pharmacy, locally owned and serving this community for 50 years, is open 364 days a year. The pharmacists at Medical Center know there's nothing more important than your family's well-being. That's why they take the time to know their customers, explain their medications, and answer any questions. The Medical Center Pharmacy, your Health Mart pharmacy. Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
Lee Hill and Johnston Insurers. We've been Statesboro's insurance people since 1963. That's a lot of memories. Recognized as one of the leading agencies in Georgia, Lee Hill & Johnston is independent and offers a complete line of personal and business insurance for auto, life, home, and health. We'll shop companies to find the lowest premiums and best coverage for you, your family, or your business. Lee Hill & Johnston Insurers, the insurance people since 1963.
And we are here once again for Jen's Pick 6. And Jen, we're shooting this on Halloween. She's dressed up like a...
I am a biker girl.
Biker girl. All right.
Kelly's also dressed up as a biker girl.
All right, so we got a couple of biker girls. Jennifer last week was 4-2. Josh was 4-2. Still up by 1 game on Jennifer. Let's see what we can do this week. Last week she picked against Georgia Southern. This week, Georgia State versus Georgia Southern. Georgia State giving 4 points. Who you got?
This is what I want to know.
Yeah.
Is Georgia Southern home this week?
They are home.
Okay.
3 o'clock.
So since Georgia Southern is home this week, and I actually got to talk to Chad Lunsford not too long ago before shooting, and he said, well, Jen, if I told him how I did last week. Yeah. I didn't really do so well, but that's just my opinion. But anyway.
He told you to pick Georgia Southern.
I went with Georgia Southern this week.
I'm taking them as well. I think they pull off what would be called an upset here. Clemson giving NC State 7. What's your thoughts on this one? Who you like?
I've done some research.
Uh-oh, there's one.
Yeah, research. And he's counting, by the way. And Clemson, I'm going for Clemson for 7 points.
It sounds a little too low. I thought that they'd be bigger favorites, so I'm going to go with NC State on this one. Georgia, coming off a big win against Florida. Now they're giving 24 to South Carolina.
Okay, so Georgia Bulldogs.
Undefeated. Ranked
very
second.
Undefeated.
Yeah.
I did another research, and I'm telling you that I think this week Georgia Bulldogs will beat them.
I think this is the game that they have a little hiccup. They're going to win the game, just maybe not by 24. Georgia Tech, coming off a tough loss this past week, they're giving 10 to a very bad Virginia team. Who you like?
You know what?
Uh-oh. You picked against Paul Johnson?
Paul, what is happening? I don't even know. And I don't even care at this point because I'm picking against your team this week, Virginia.
I got Georgia Tech. All right, Appalachian State lost to UMass last week. UMass beat Georgia Southern 2 weeks ago, so who knows what's going on with that team. App State giving 10 against Louisiana Monroe. Who you like? Uh-oh.
I think Appalachian State's going to win it.
I think so too. I think
10
they'll
points.
Cover the 10 as well. The last game on here, you got the Carolina Panthers giving your Atlanta Falcons. You got Cam Newton. You got Matt Ryan. You got Carolina giving 2 points to Atlanta. Who you like? Go ahead.
I love Atlanta Falcons.
You picked against them last week.
I'm going with Atlanta Falcons.
I'm going to go with Carolina. Cam Newton to find a way to get this one done. All right, Jen, we're right on time. Before we go, you're sponsored by
Lee Hill & Johnston.
And we'd like to remind you, head by the University store. They got some
AP
gifts.
stuff.
You got some hats. You got some shirts. You got a big game coming up Saturday at home playing Georgia State. Get out there, get some merchandise at the University store on the Georgia Southern campus. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next week.